You are watching Mentoring Conversations with Neil Jansen, inspiring stories, wise paths. Welcome to Mentoring Conversations with Neil Jansen. In this series, we delve into the journeys of those who have triumphed over adversity. Through compelling and introspective dialogues, we illuminate tales of personal triumphs and the invaluable lessons they impart. Each episode serves as a guiding light for individuals navigating their own paths, offering stories that resonate deeply and insights that inspire. Dr. Muki Moeng's journey from a makeshift classroom with an old car bonnet to the pinnacle of academia epitomizes resilience and dedication. Growing up in the tumultuous era of apartheid, she defied the odds by organizing study groups amidst disrupted education, setting the stage for her lifelong commitment to learning. Her activism as a member of COSAS led to imprisonment at a young age, yet her spirit remained unbroken. Despite setbacks, including repeating grade 8 multiple times, she pursued her passion for education, becoming the first in her family to attend university. Armed with a scholarship, Dr. Moeng ventured to the USA, earning an MSc and embarking on a career in higher education. Her return to Nelson Mandela University marked a full circle, where she now serves as Deputy Vice-Chancellor, championing progressive goals for student development. Her leadership extends beyond academia, advocating for women in STEM fields and providing guidance to children in mapping their futures. A survivor of breast cancer, she amplifies courage and humility, inspiring others to seize opportunities and lead with passion. Dr. Muki Moeng's journey underscores the transformative power of education and the indomitable human spirit.
Good day and welcome to another edition of Mentoring Conversations with Neil Jansen. Today we're in Gqeberha at the Nelson Mandela University, and we privileged that we're having a conversation with none other than the DVC of Learning and Teaching. It's such an honor to meet you. Thanks very much for your time. And it's Dr. Muki Moeng.
Yes.
It's really an honor to meet you and to have this conversation with you. Thank you very much that you offer us the opportunity to just share in your journey. And just as a starting point, we obviously saw your biography, but just help us in your own words to describe your journey.
I grew up in Graaff-Reinet, as you would know, very proud to have grown up in such a community, because it was, a community that was well-knit when I was growing up. And I started school there, went to Insika Primary School. At the time, we only had churches where we went to school. And so I went to different churches for sub A, sub B, until, standard 2. And then we moved to a new school, newly built school in 1982 when I was doing standard 3. And then I did my high school in Nweba High School, which was just next door to epitomises, where I was in my higher primary school. And then applied for university at the then University of Port Elizabeth. And we were told at the time that it's not even possible to get into UPE. And I said, you know what, let me try. So I applied to Vista, I applied to UPE, I also applied to Cape College, because I knew I wanted to become a teacher. But then I wanted to become a teacher that's got a degree and not a diploma. At the time, I was not well aware about the differences, but a degree sounded good. And then after that, I qualified, and then I got a scholarship in 1990, towards the end of 1997, to go to the US. And I studied curriculum and instruction. I went to St. Cloud State University, and I did my master's for 2 years, and then came back. It was a partnership with UPE at the time, that you go there and do your master's and come back and become a lecturer. And so I became a lecturer then in 2000, started here at UPE. And then, We will talk about others as well.
Okay.
Yes,
And
yeah,
they
yeah,
say
yeah.
the rest is history.
The rest is history,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Maybe quickly reflect on your childhood and reflect on the key values. You were very much politically active. I read lots of articles about your part of the resistance movement in the 80s, the 90s, etc. You can just share how your childhood shaped you and your value system.
Yeah, sure. You're right. It was really during a political era, so in the 70s, and my parents and my siblings were very much involved in the struggle. So my dad was involved in Sanko, Sanko, Graiko, and my brother also involved in the Youth Congress of the UDF at the time. And it was only natural, you know, because I understood what the struggle was. You know, we could see my brother getting detained without any reason and coming back. And eventually he went on exile, you know, for 5 years, 85 to 1990, because the police did not give him any rest. And my dad and myself were detained for about 2 months or so. My dad was sent to George, and I was sent to Middelburg as a 15-year-old because I was part of SASCO and part of the SRC. And for me, it was important that we challenge, you know, the status quo at the time, especially when it came to curriculum. And that's what later led me to do a master's in democracy in education when I was in the US, because that was part of my upbringing.
Okay. And you very much on social media highlight the fact that you're from a rural town called Graaff-Reinet, and in an era where some people almost create this impression that they were just, suddenly moved into this urban areas and don't recognize their rural roots. Maybe if you just share the reasons why I can even see you involved with social impact projects in the Graaff-Reinet area, if you can just help us to understand the why part of why you feel the need to do that.
Yeah, I was brought up with the values of Ubuntu. And that is a small dorpy and a small township. We really grew up together, mixed. And I can say the so-called coloreds and the COSAS speaking in one township, speaking the same language. And you will hear that in my Afrikaans is by a goed, ne? Yeah, but we mix it with isiXhosa. Yeah, you know, in cities they would mix it with English, but our isiXhosa is mixed with Afrikaans mostly. But those values of community and giving back, that is something that I learned from my mother. With the little that she had, she used to work at Drosti Hotel. She would wake up at 6 a.m. and then later on she was tired of being harassed by the police because they would go to her work and ask, "Where's your son? We need to talk to your son." And she decided she's going to go into business. So with all of those entrepreneurial skills, she would go to Joburg, Durban, buy clothes, come back, sell them. And so those values, and we had a little bit of money. So every December, we would have a Christmas for the community around. And then she would have a cooked meal and just give to the community with no expectation to get anything, you know, in return. And so those values of giving back, and the struggle taught us that you need to be selfless. It's not about you. It's about the community and giving back to the community. And so that's why I really entered into giving back to society and giving back to my community. And the best way I know how, and how God, I believe, has given me, because God has given me education. So for me, my passion is about teaching. It's about education and how I can, you know, support others and give them a hand up as I rise, you know, and lift them up. Yeah.
So it's 30 years since our democracy. I recall I was a laity and I voted at a polling station at Van Vogel as I don't want to say down the road, but it's in the northern areas in then PE is now Kleberga. Just your reflections, you an accomplished person, you today DVC of such a proud institution, and just your impressions of where are we?
Sure. Where are we? You're taking me back now, telling me where you voted. I'm not sure whether it was in 1993 or 1992, there was a referendum. And we were in res. Remember, we could not vote. So all white people went out to vote, deciding our future, whether they should let us in or out.
Yeah, of near.
You know, yeah, of near. That was the referendum. And I remember that vividly. They proudly went out, and we stayed back in the residence, and then they came back, you know. And the following year then, I think it was 93, in 1994, I voted here where the boardwalk is now. There was a tennis court and something there. We voted there as students, so it was closer to us as we were students here. But looking back, it pains me, especially when I look into education, because we've made great progress. There's no doubt about it, because I wouldn't be sitting in this office had it not been for, you know, the struggle and the African National Congress in making those great strides. But when you look at the budgets that are turned back and not used for the purposes that they were planned for, and for me it's not because there's no money, it's just there's no competence in making sure that whatever the money is aimed for, you know, it's used for that particular purpose. So you find schools, even now, we are nowhere near having that 27 number of learners in a classroom, which is conducive for learning. You still have schools where there's 50 plus. And tell me, how would learning take place in such an environment? And we have teachers that are burned out because they can really not handle. But we have got policies that say we need to be inclusive, and yet we do not prepare those teachers, you know, to give them a conducive environment to be able to handle those learners in a class of 50 or 60. So yes, we've made progress, but when it comes to education, I'm worried, and I'm not hearing any political party at the moment talking about how is it that we're going to turn education around. Because for me, that's the basis of any society to improve. You have to have a good basis of education.
And because in my view, if you do not systemically ensure that public or government schools are genuinely a platform for the vulnerable and the working class to try and get out of the situations, we are going to forever perpetuate the inequality, and where you almost, where I might make a controversial statement, is that you don't want to end up with, for example, a Springbok team where everybody can twang. In other words, they speak English, they were born in Zweden, they must go to Grey to become a Springbok.
Exactly.
There's very few Makazolo Mapimpis, and we want, the ideal is real freedom will be the day when the child who goes to school in New Brighton, Lingilihle, have the same platform as the child who go to Grey. Your views?
You are so right, because we need to give our children the same head start. Because when you talk about the ex-Model C schools, where perhaps our children go to because we are the so-called middle class, we can afford, it's really important for the government of the day to recognize that when we talk about equality and when we talk about the reduction of poverty, we need to start by giving every child the same opportunity. Because by you not improving the school in Lingelihle or in Masizake, you are inadvertently or even knowingly, you know, disadvantaging that student or that learner, because they don't have the same opportunity, because their parents cannot afford those other schools. And I've always tussled with myself, where you hear, because I'm a teacher by profession, where you hear people would say, why don't you have your children in the same school where you are teaching? You take your kids out of that environment and yet you're still there. So for me, it's a really difficult situation to put our citizens through. So it's important that to give all of our learners the same starting block, and then it will be up to them, not to take up the opportunities. But you set them up for failure immediately when you don't provide, those conducive learning environments.
In my humble opinion, having been in corporate for over 25 years, it sounds simple, but everything starts and ends with leadership.
Yes.
And the question is, school principals, in my view, play such a critical role.
They do.
And I mean, you find experts like Professor Jonathan Jansen, who's gone on record in textbooks as saying, good school principal, good school.
Yeah.
Weak school principal, problematic schools.
Yeah.
So your views on the training of school principals, because my information is that there's no statutory training program that say to become a school principal, you must have gone through this leadership training. Because the transition, you can be an excellent mathematics teacher,
Yes.
Afrikaans teacher. You can be an extremely ineffective school principal. Your comments as an education expert.
And that goes with every education institution as well, in terms of leadership, because that's what I always say, even at university, you can be the best researcher, and yet your leadership skills are not good enough. So I do think there's a gap there for our school principals to be, trained. Yes, they are trained as teachers, so they can stand in front of the classroom, but in terms of managing and leading a school, it makes a huge difference. We used to have a program here when it was still UPE, principalship, and I'm sure there was a lot of principalship programs that were there, where school principals were trained, on how to lead a school. I have done my master's, like I said, in democracy and in education, and I dedicate a chapter there on good school leadership and what we need in a school principal, and the kind of values and the kind of culture that needs to be built. Because remember, a leader builds a culture, and that culture depends on how that person leads. If it's someone who's going to be coming late and not being punctual, someone who does not expect any, consequences if they don't perform, then that's the culture that you're building. So I want to agree with you that our school principals really need that. And as we speak, our Faculty of Education is hosting the South African Principals Association here at North Campus. And we started, when I was the dean, we started to build a relationship with school principals. So we've got that community of practice, so that school principals can learn from one another. And that's been my dream, because what you find is that school principals are given laptops or iPads. They don't even know where to push the button. And they don't have time to push that button, because there are things that are happening that are not being dealt with, through the system. So as you were talking about the systemic changes that we need to make, and for me, the systemic changes also go with the shift in the mind as well, to view ourselves that we are builders, and we can have a good school in a township.
Now, and I know I'm here we would like to talk about your story more.
Okay.
But I'm just, as I'm sitting here reflecting on those days, in Grafrinet, there was the rugby teams. Swallows and
Yes, and ABC.
Evergreens, etc. And to me, one challenge that I'd like you as an academic, your view on what has gone wrong is that At the time, for those of us who united under the SACOS umbrella, remember there was no money from the apartheid government. There was no black businesses because we were not allowed to operate other than the minor businesses that we could get involved in. But yet, we organized ourselves. Our tournament started on time. It was peaceful. Yet in an environment where our people, despite all the challenges, in my humble opinion, there are so many opportunities for kids these days and working class kids. But I'm asking myself, a person like yourself, where did it go wrong where you have this entitlement culture where it's almost as if people budget to take sick leave? They just feel entitled not to work. And I'd like to get your views, especially in the education space. How do we change that culture to that culture of the teachers that teach me? I'm grateful. They were always on time, respectful. They didn't drink in public. And I am where I am because of that foundation. So your views?
I think, where we place our values, I think that's where it has changed. And the respect for the teaching profession. You did not go into teaching just because you did not have anything better to do. I believe you went into teaching because you were called to teach. Because there's no teacher who would go through training if they don't love children. Because that's the basis of teaching. It's for you to love that child. And loving the child means that you would deprive yourself of certain things to be able to teach that child, to see that child flourish, which means that there won't be any rape, which means that there won't be any drugs, which also means that, you will have a community that's, stuck together. And I think where we really failed is that as communities, we did not take the lessons learned from the past. We wanted to, what they say, that you throw the baby with the bathwater and not learn from the good things in terms of, the values that we had. And I think it's because we were fighting a common enemy. There's nothing that binds you together like an aim and objective that is singular and that you all buy into, whatever that aim is. And at that time, it was the struggle. But we can create another aim now, to say, what is it that we want for South Africa? What is it that we want for Africa in general? And then start from there, and we can all work together. So that discipline really disappeared. And I really believe it's because we don't have that common aim, and we have lost the values of Ubuntu, love, respect for oneself, and respecting for your community, and also helping out as we move along.
So let's fast forward to you joined the then UPE, it became NMU, and I'd like you to reflect on the typical challenges within the academic space, and at a personal level, how did you navigate? Surely the political undercurrents at institutions, the dynamics with contestations for positions, the universities largely driven by democratic institutions, whether it's the Senate and what do they call it, Institutional Transformation Forum. There's lots of friction, and it is not as easy as I remember working in a large JSE listed company. I could take a decision and spend 2 million, and I don't need signatures. I wasn't reckless, but what I'm saying, help people who are aspiring to take up the kind of role that you currently occupying, to understand the dynamic and how you make sure that you deal effectively with those kinds of challenges.
All right. And then I think your question is twofold, because I do want to go back a little bit in terms of the challenges at the then UPE as a young person.
And as a black woman.
As a black woman. And there's only about 2 or 3 of us at the time who are black. And by black, I mean all inclusive, all inclusive, and a couple of male, you are undermined first. You're not good enough, especially with from those people who don't know you. I would say I was fortunate because I came back to UPE where I was a student.
Okay.
And so it is the same. If the professor says that I'm not good enough, it means they didn't do a good job of me not being good enough. But I was cheeky, you know. I would say no to things that I felt did not benefit me. And I would see unfairness happening. And I would raise my hand in faculty board and say, you can't talk like that to the dean. At the time we had an Indian dean who was really undermined and bullied, you know, by white males because they were bringing in, you know, millions of rand. At that time I didn't even know how budgets work. I'm just an ordinary lecturer. And the way they were talking, you know, to our dean, and I just raised my hand. I said, what is it that we want from these people? They can go most with their money, and then we can stay here. We've been functioning as a faculty, and I didn't even know the implications. And one of my colleagues, a black academic, says to me, you are very cheeky. Eh? You're telling the white men where to go. I said, yes. Who is going to stand up for our leaders? Because I believe that our dean was composed because, you know, they've got a bigger picture. They know, you know, what is going on, and they, you know, they're very careful and measured in how they're dealing with things. And I had nothing to lose. So, and I was that voice, because I think in every situation you do need that voice that is going to be critical, that is also going to be challenging. So fast forward, in terms of how we manage, you know, things at universities, and I always hear that people coming into university saying, I was from corporate, and your policies take 6 months, and we're busy now with policies. They're really taking that long. Because we need to consult. And as academics, we need to look through the thing, whether it is reflective of, you know, the philosophy and all of these things that we stand for. So it does take a while, but I do believe in consultation because I believe in democracy. Because once you've consulted, people feel heard and seen, and they see themselves in that process. So they then, you know, buy into the process, and they buy into whatever thing that you are selling or wanting to move forward with. So those are the challenges, but you'll find still 2024 you still have issues of some people who don't see others as good enough, or whom they think don't measure. We have a student population that is mostly black. And so you'll find also students complaining about certain, you know, lecturers, maybe in class, who would treat them differently. It's not in the majority, but there are those isolated incidences where you still find that. So we're not there yet. We still have a long way to go, but we try by all means in our programs that we offer for our academics to develop. We introduce, you know, those, and we are clear as Nelson Mandela University. We're working on our institutional culture, and we are clear that in our vision, we are aspiring to become a cutting-edge institution in Africa. So we're not mistaken about who we are and where we are. And we would like to see everyone buying, you know, into that. So that is important. And our stance in terms of social justice is also clear. You know, those are the values that Mandela stood for. And we are really proud to be part of Nelson Mandela University, and also to be named after such an iconic person.
How do you as a leader navigate to ensure that the collegiality that people almost expect at university, we try and consult, with the need sometimes to deliver results and transform quicker, and not transformation from a BE perspective, because quite more often than not in South Africa, I think in my humble opinion, people reduce transformation to
just that,
scorecard.
yes, to the scorecard.
To me, it's transforming the institutional culture and the need for a performance results output driven culture. How do you as DVC deal with situations where here you have a dean or you have a deputy dean that wants to lalagahle, if you understand what I'm saying? I must accept this is the institution, it will happen more as nog 'n dag. If I may use my
More is not
that's my
that.
question clear?
Yeah. I think I get your question. For me, it's the two sides of the same coin. If you say you still want performance, and because people often don't see the correlation between transformation and being transformative, as well as getting results. They think that if you only concentrate on this, because they reduce transformation to the color of the skin. So that's where the problem lies. You need to be firm. As a leader, I'm firm. I'm known. I was just talking to my colleague now and saying, you are saying, you're very nice. It's nice to work with you. I said, yes, but I can be full of nonsense for sometimes. He says, yeah, but in a nice way. I'm that kind of person who will tell you off in such a way that you'll say thank you, because I've shown you the way. Because for me, it has to do with being human. Because we are first and foremost human beings. So when I talk to a dean or I talk to a student, we're first engaging from that level as human beings. So that respect is supposed to be there. And once you've gained that respect, you can engage, you can argue, you can disagree. It's based on love, and I'm going to talk about love now, and it's based on humility. Here at this institution, our educational philosophy is based on a humanizing pedagogy. And that comes from critical pedagogy. It's not a soft pedagogy. Very critical of the status quo, and also looking into how you teach. The pedagogies that you use need to be humanistic, but they also need to be critical and challenging. And that comes from the Brazilian educator, Paulo Freire. And in one of the letters that he wrote to the teachers as social workers, cultural workers, is one of the qualities of a teacher that he says it's lovingness. And I think for me that translates into leadership and everything. Because when you love, you need to love the student, but you also need to love your profession. I love my profession. Teaching first and foremost, and leading in learning and teaching. And when you have the lovingness, you are able to navigate that circumstance with love, and still get the results. It doesn't mean that because you care, you're going to be soft. I used to say during Fees Must Fall in 2016, when students were really becoming disrespectful, calling people by name. You so-and-so. And this is a professor, it's a DVC, and the students are just I said, why are you allowing them to call you by name? They shouldn't. And if we don't tell them that it's wrong, it means that we are encouraging them in the wrong direction. They need to be told. My students knew, even if I would sit down with them during Fees Must Fall, and I would guide them and say, listen, you can't be just toying 24/7. Give us something. This is a university. Give us something in writing, because I need to respond to you. But by you yelling at me, I would have forgotten some of the things that you said. But if you write them down and you give evidence of what you are writing down, then I can take it to my faculty committee and management committee and discuss it, because it's there, it's in black and white, and we can respond to you. Because I am not going to come back to you in 10 days and then go with a loud hailer and say, these are the things that you said. So you need to write down. So even with that coaching and guiding, because I think it's important in the midst of struggle, strife and fighting and protesting with students, we still need to maintain that guidance as leaders. Otherwise, our youth is going to go in disarray and we will have problems in future. So it is our responsibility. I struggled. I was in jail for 2 years. I was here in this university when we were fighting about Afrikaans. We went to the 18th floor. I'm now on the 17th floor. To tell the VC at the time, listen, this Afrikaans is not working. I cannot be taught isiXhosa in Afrikaans. You know that I did isiXhosa in Afrikaans and in English. And I majored in isiXhosa. It was my major.
So
but I did
teaching you Xhosa was doing it.
It's a white person
in Afrikaans.
in Afrikaans.
Okay.
And then they changed the following year, a white person in English, teaching me isiXhosa. So those are the things that we were, fighting about, and then dogs and tear gases. So I understand that. But we still need to be disciplined in how we do it, because what is the end game? The end game is not to embarrass you. The end game is not to make sure that, on social media we pluck you around and then we talk about. The end game should be a better society for all. That's the end game. And you cannot get that if you're not disciplined.
So now let's talk about Muki and how she deals with personal disappointments, challenges. We plan in our personal lives. You have a story to tell where you have transcended beyond being you were faced with cancer, and it would be great if you can share with people what was the experience like and what you learned from it.
Sure, yes. That was a big shock. I was 49 years old, so I thought I was still young. And I had a sharp pain. I was still a dean, and I had a sharp pain in my chest. It was the right side, but it felt like a heart attack, okay? So I did not even know whether it's left or right. And I asked, my assistant, please call the doctor, let me get an appointment. So I got an appointment and I went, and then I did not even think it was breast cancer, and I didn't examine myself. And the doctor did so and immediately sent me for radiography. And there I was told, please talk to your doctor. Make sure that your doctor is going to call you. Doctor took a little bit of time, did not call me immediately. And it was only when I went in for something else that another doctor looked at the thing. They've got an interconnected system. Says, we've got results, here. These are the results, But we don't know what it is, because at the time, you still need to make do a biopsy. And I was given that appointment to go to for a biopsy. It was around March. I went with my husband. And then, a day or two after that, got the results. Devastating results. Sure. Everything, when you hear the word cancer, you hear death sentence. I can attest to that. That's what you are hearing. At the time, I did not even know. Yes, they sat down with me to say it's stage. Fortunately for me, it was stage 1. Stage 1, grade 1. What that means, it means it's small. That's all that I understand. And then I did a lumpectomy, went in, towards the end of March, for that surgery. I'm just thinking of what I saw on TV now on Tuesday, with the march that happened in Joburg. There are many people who are on a waiting list. I'm telling you my story now. You know that I went to the doctor towards the end of January. 2nd of March, I got my appointment, for my mammogram. Towards the end of March, got the surgery. In April, I started my chemo. And I had a lot of sessions. And then I had radiation towards the end of the year. For me, that's how short it is, because I've got a medical aid. But for those who don't have medical aid and depend on the state, they would be diagnosed with grade 1, stage 1, and then have to wait for months while the cancer spreads. So it's heartbreaking what an ordinary person in South Africa is going through. while, the department says we are looking into it, we're going to implement it, we're still talking, to a service provider to, give us the machines or whatever. So these inequalities, you see them in society. So coming back to my story, the question that you asked, I talk a lot.
No, it's fine. It's your story.
Yeah, and so and then I went through chemo. You listen and you read, and sometimes they say don't read too much on Google, the internet, because there's misleading information. So I didn't read too much because I didn't want, to get disappointed or expect things and things don't happen. And in May, so in April, I went for on my wedding anniversary, 14th of April, that was my husband's birthday. We had a small celebration. I didn't know what was coming, A small celebration with cake, we're blowing candles, it's our anniversary, 14th of April. Went in, really when I came out back, nothing, major. I still made dumplings and chicken and curry or whatever. We ate nice. 5 days after that, it hit me. You become weak. You don't know whether you're going or you're coming. There's pain. You don't know where the pain comes from. And then you have this pills that you get so that you don't feel the pain. And then they make you fat. So I gained weight. I was round. But then I went through it because I knew that I had to have a positive mind. And at that time, it was during COVID as well. So I had COVID 3 times. And I believe that the cancer treatment really worked wonders in terms of making sure that I was not hospitalized with COVID. And so then I went for radiation around November. And I had COVID during that time, so they were coming out to get me from my car with PPEs. I was still driving. There were times when I was driving myself, but there were times when I said to my husband, no, I don't think I'll be able to drive myself today. Because you don't know how chemo hits you. You are fine sitting on that chair. That's why I had on the couch conversations, is because of the couch that I was sitting on. And then it's fine. I had other side, a pot, because sometimes they would struggle to get my vein, and so it was better to have a pot. So and then you sit there, and then it's nice because you gesels and alles with people until it hits you like a lamb. And I did that, for how many months? From April until November. And then radiation. When you do radiation, for me, it looked like it was okay. They told me that, no, don't rub in any moisturizers or ointments or whatever. So I didn't, which was good. But then that thing burns you. I remember when I was growing up, people were saying, ja, hulle het vir my gebrand. And I never knew that they were talking about radiation at the time, people who had cancer when I was growing up. So it burns. I had a pink kind of thing. My skin was falling off. My skin was falling off here because of the radiation. But by December that year, we went with my husband to my in-laws in Rustenburg, at least some heat. But my hair fell off. It fell off in May. It's sad because women and their hair. Look at me. I have this crown and I'm so proud of this crown now because I've got my hair. And when it falls off, I was brushing my hair, combing my hair, and it's like a whole stick off. And I'm like, what's happening? And another stick off, and it does not fall nicely. Like your hair. It's got its patches, and you're like, no, you have to take it off. Yeah. And I lost the sense of smell, sense of taste, Everything was too salty. Everything was too burning. My nails turned black. And I almost forgot that my nails are very sensitive, né? Because I also want to look nice. Now they're so painful at the moment because I did, the gel, and I did 3 times this year. Sure, and my nails told me, not that thing. They are so weak and brittle. Now I can't even scratch my head with this because it's weak. I'm still taking a pill every day. I'm going to take that for the next 5 years. And that also has some effects, side effects of, still my nails and pins and needles in my feet and my hands, and the hot flashes. So I have my own summer at times. I have to do that. Yes, good shoo, because the cancer. Someone told me I must not say my cancer. Okay. I must not own it. Okay. It's not mine. The cancer has to do with the hormone. Okay. So I then, in my treatment, I can't take anything that has got to do with hormones. That's hormonal. I've got blemishes here. You'll see my makeup. I've got blemishes here and here. It's because of the chemical imbalance. And I'm happy with that. I put on makeup sometimes. I guess it's less for makeup. But I have to put it on because I don't want to be asked questions. Because I did sometime, went to Woolworths and I met someone that I work with, and I didn't have, makeup. And she was like, "Oh wow, what happened?" I'm like, I'm like this actually. And she said, "Oh, you put your makeup very nicely then." Oh, yes, okay. I put my makeup very nicely. So those are the side effects and the hot flashes. And hot flashes come whenever. But they are triggered by something warm sometimes, or wine, or just stress, when you get nervous and then you get hot flashes. But I can manage that. I am blessed. And your question was, so what was the lesson for me? The lesson is that we always plan that at such and such a time, I'd be done with being a dean, and I applied for this post, and I didn't get it the first time. Okay. So it needs to be known. I want people to know, because people just see you rising and things happening and think that there's never been any disappointment. And you pop like popcorn. You just pop like popcorn somewhere, and then you look beautiful, and they put you like a blom pot. It doesn't happen like that. So I applied for this post, and it was, someone else got it. And I supported that person because yes, as much as it was disappointing and heartsier, I knew that my time was coming, whether it was going to be at this university or another university. I knew. And I also knew that my job was not done where I was. And so I got this position. And so the lessons that I've learned is that God's time is good time. And things will fall into place. When you are going through a lot, you don't see in front of you. You don't see any possibilities. It's just dark, and you feel that you are abandoned. But when you look back to that dark time, that's where you get your lessons. And you need to be awake to those lessons. Because I don't think God sends you triple messages. He will send you the first time and the second time. But then the third time is up to you. So for me, also having that teachable spirit and learning in every opportunity that you get. Like we're sitting here, I'm learning a lot. And hopefully someone will be watching this and learning. So for me, it's important really to understand. Not that it is nice when it happens, but to understand there's a bigger dream, a bigger goal, a bigger purpose for your life. So for me, I found that the experience with cancer really gave me a bigger purpose. also to be less arrogant. Even if you're not pompous, but there are times when you feel arrogant. But life humbles you to understand that you are not alone in this world, and it's not only about you. It's about the greater purpose that God has put you on earth to fulfill.
You make me think I was raised in a congregational church, and mense sê die mens beplan, maar God bepaal.
Daar
Wil
sê.
nie nou kerklik
Ja,
sê,
ja.
ons is die kerkie. Muki, we're almost coming to the end. Only 3 more questions. The one would be more, you reflected a lot about the physical impact cancer had on yourself when you went for chemo, etc. But do you mind reflecting on the emotional journey, the emotional resilience that you were able to, you lost your hair, you had to get up, you had to deal with the reality of the treatment and the impact on you. For someone who might have gone and were diagnosed yesterday and feel, wow, this, some doctors have this practice of saying to people want to know, how long is it going to take until I die?
Sure.
Just help them to appreciate how do I navigate and be internally strong.
Yeah. For me, it was having a strong family support. My husband was by my side every day, and my children were there. They suffered, as a result. My daughter was doing grade 12, and she did not do too well. She did well, but not, the way that she would have done, had I not had cancer. You are so down that the only hope you have is really to look up to God. Because I had occasions when I was standing in the shower. I did not have the energy to pick up the vaslap. It was too heavy for me to carry, to wash myself. And I would say, God, it's up to you, really what you want me to do. But it was also during that time that I started to read the Bible earnestly now, finding ways of being comforted, because there are several verses, there's a verse about this young woman who goes to Jesus and says, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, and then I'll be saved. Because the child was bleeding for months and there was no cure. And at that point, I also felt, that. So, dealing with cancer really needs you to be emotionally strong. What I've found is that when people stress, a lot of things happen in your body rejects the medication and all of that, and you overthink things. So it's important to really have that voice reasoning, every time, to know it's going to be fine. My mother-in-law used to say, "Go tla siama." That's one. It's going to be fine. And at the time, not when I had cancer, because she passed on in 2010, but at the time, she likes to say this thing, we don't see ourselves going through this. But I really believe that it shall be okay. It will be all right. You just need to believe, and also believe in the capacity of your body and understand the chemistry, because what we don't understand as well is that chemistry. What is happening in your mind tells your body to either flight or fight. And if you tell, your body that we need to fight this thing. So mentally, you really have to be strong to come to that point of saying, let me fight this. And over and above my family, I had colleagues from this university. They gave me time off, because can you imagine if I still had to no worry about me having to perform and coming to the office every time. Them giving me that understanding, you know what, you can take sick leave and you can take sabbatical, because there was a point, at least I was not that sick and I could do research and supervise students. And so the university assisted me in getting better. So the surrounding and that support is really important, and for you to be mentally strong.
Very interesting. I'm one of your Facebook friends and saw you are currently going through a swimming lesson. and I find it's beautiful. You know, people are not always comfortable to be vulnerable and say, wow, I am beyond I'm 50.
And I don't know how to swim.
And it's the only thing that I still blame apartheid for. I said my mom was very strict. We only had the fish river.
Yes.
Back of the former Craddock jail. And I tell you, I can only float on my back. But I swim underwater for half a minute. So it was very interesting to see that you decided you're going to take up formal swimming lessons. And with that also just generally how you manage your well-being, and that includes your physical and mental well-being.
I'm not that active. I'm a little bit lazy sometimes, but I've got a very active husband. So he takes me out for walks. So we walk at the beach, perhaps during weekends or during the week. If I've had a long day, really, I want to clear my mind. I'm very fortunate that we live by, the beach, and we would take a walk. Coming back to the swimming part, you're talking about the river. We have the Sundays River, in Gauteng. My brothers used to go for a swim, and then we get young crab, and then we got birds and all of that. I ate almost everything because I had older brothers who were naughty. So, but I never learned how to swim there. So now in 2021 or 2022, we go for vacation. My in-laws are, staying in Rustenburg, so going to Rustenburg, but during the day we went to Valley of Waves to Sun City. Went on to a ride with my daughter. We are in a cube, nice. I don't know how to swim. And it's a winding thingy, and then it catapults you, and then you go in. It's a small pond. It's not a swimming pool. It's sewer flock. Young.
Valley of the Waves.
Yeah. So I went, my goodness, I couldn't stand up. I felt like I was drowning. And what do you call these people who help?
The lifesavers.
The lifesavers saw me, because my family did not see me. I was screaming underwater. This water. I was screaming underwater, please help, please help. You know when someone drowns really in that pond. And he jumped in really, and people were looking, and I saw people who were like, so what's wrong with this person, And then after that, I told myself, I need to learn how to swim. But then I postponed it. And then this year I said, you know what? I need to learn how to swim. Even if I don't know how to swim properly, but I need to float and survive underwater, for more than a minute, So I went on and I registered. So I go when I don't have meetings. So I go on Monday, Thursday and Saturdays. Yeah.
Then Muki, mentoring, coaching, supporting and guiding people, in my view, is very important. Reflect on your journey and as far as 2 or 3 mentors that played that important role in your life.
I would say first and foremost, it's my parents. In psychology, they also say that you learn by observation. So there are certain people, at work that you look at. I'm very loud and sometimes dahastag, And there are people who are calm in their demeanor. And I'm like, I want to be like that, but I don't think I'll survive. So there are those people that are not mentoring me, directly and physically. I also, our university arranged for a mentoring program as well, where when I was a dean, we had mentors who would check in. But I'm not the kind of person who wants you to check in on me every day. So I want you to leave me to do my thing. Let me come to you when I need assistance. So I'm that kind of person. But my parents were my mentors in terms of really how you bring up a family and also how you deal with other people as human beings. And my teachers. That's why I went into teaching. I had two wonderful teachers. My first wonderful teacher was grade 3, standard 1, grade 3. Miss Vena, she passed on now. That teacher gave me confidence that I never had. She saw in me what I didn't see in myself, that I'm a confident person. I can speak in front of the class. She would ask me to help her with the register and all of those little things that I tell my students sometimes, you think that it's little, but to that child, it means the world. And so that was my first inspiration that I want to become that. And another teacher, well-dressed, in standard 5, Miss Williams. Ooh, she knew how to dress it. I'm like, when I become a teacher, I'm going to be like that teacher. I need to be well-dressed and to be articulate. And then in high school, I had Mr. Jack, my maths teacher. I did maths up to standard 6, or standard 7. Yeah, when we went to standard 8 to choose, I was dismal because he became a school principal.
Okay.
And, we got someone else. I'm not going to say who. We got someone else as a teacher who was not as passionate. Who was Mr. Jack, would just take us by the hand and make you understand with real life examples. And so I really enjoyed mathematics, but after that I lost interest and I did geography and history and biology. So those were my majors when I was at school. So those are really my mentors. Really, it was my teachers and my parents.
Okay, so we're coming to the final question. That's really your vision for the rest of your life. What is it that you're putting out there that, not necessarily academic qualifications, but just where you say, look, this is where I'm going, and this is how I'm going to navigate whatever is left of my life.
As I said, my understanding is that I know that I am here for a purpose. There were times, I think it was in my 30s, where I used to ask myself, what is my purpose? I'm a lecturer at the time, but I can't sense what my purpose is. And it has been revealed like an onion, skull. It's been, revealed every time that this is, your purpose. And I believe my purpose, my higher purpose is to motivate. My higher purpose is to influence and make changes in people's lives. It is teaching, not necessarily standing in front of a classroom, but through the way that I live my life, that I teach others, how to live their lives, and also teach others how to give back. So what's there in the horizon, it's up to God, But I really believe that I always say that the position that you are given, you need to use that position. And it's got privileges, and it also has responsibilities. Take those responsibilities seriously. So as a DVC, my responsibility is to make sure that learning and teaching happens in the classroom, that my students are taught in a well-conducive environment. It's my responsibility. So I must make it work. That's why I have the position. It's not because of this big desk and a computer and a big office and a beautiful view of the ocean. That's part of it. But what is the responsibility? So And I also believe that if each and every one of us could look at life in that way, to say that you are given a position, do your best with what you are given. And if it's an influential position, use that influence to the advantage of others.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Dr. Muki Moeng, the DVC, Learning and Teaching at the Nelson Mandela University in Gqeberha. It was an honor. Thank you very much for the time, the openness, and I wish you well. I wish you lots of abundance of health and joy, and good luck with the swimming. And I'm going to off camera, we're going to talk about the project in Kraflin.
Yes, we must.
So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and the kind of questions and the opportunity for me to have this conversation with you.
It's a pleasure and
Thank
good luck
you.
with your journey.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.